drogue gangrène nos quartiers.
Ça lessive, ça. Le plus dur maintenant, c'est quand on a fini, quand il n'y en a plus.
Voilà, donc une galette et une pipe à crack.
Hello and welcome to France in Focus. This week we're looking at France's war on drugs. And reports suggest that more people smoke cannabis here than anywhere else in Europe. The government, though, is trying to take action. They've introduced a €200 fine for anybody caught consuming drugs. Now, will that work, or will it simply push drug use further underground?
Qu'est-ce que c'est, monsieur? Vous avez une pièce d'identité sur vous, quelque chose?
At this metro exit on the north side of Marseille, mandatory police searches, with €200 fines for anyone found carrying less than 100 grams of cannabis or 10 grams of cocaine. It's part of France's new anti-drug strategy. According to the Interior Ministry, over 5,300 fines were issued in the first 3 weeks of September alone.
We use it every day during major operations like this one or new housing projects. We ticket the buyers, but it also shuts down the dealer's spot. It's a remarkable tool.
Police unions, though, are already complaining that quotas have been set in certain areas based on the new law. For addiction specialists, this latest step towards drug prohibition only makes abuse prevention that much harder.
The more we punish, the more we push users into the shadows. They'll just order their drugs on the internet and take them at home.
That trend is only getting easier thanks to online tools of which dealers have already long availed themselves. Marketing now takes place on social networks like Snapchat, where promotions are regularly launched to subscribers. Delivery services are centralized.
You need a receptionist to answer the phone and a courier ready to pick up orders and deliver them within half an hour.
It's a new set of challenges for police in the fight against retail drug trafficking. They can no longer just stake out hotspots. Now, instead, the product comes to the client.
Peut venir en combien de temps?
Maximum 30 minutes. Après, au bout d'un moment, quand t'es fidèle, ils te font des petits cadeaux.
C'est quoi?
Ils te passent soit 1 gramme de trucs, après il y a de la MD aussi.
Some drug couriers work for legal restaurant delivery services at the same time, as yet another sector joins the Uberization of society, a phenomenon that has only accelerated since the coronavirus lockdown.
We're now going to talk to Claire Andrieux, the author of the new book, The Shadow War, all about drug policy here in France. And you say in this book that drug trafficking to France is increasing. Why, and where are those drugs coming from?
Why? Because we have a cluster of consumers who are into drugs. We see this because retail prices aren't dropping. It's also because drug production is on the increase, particularly in Colombia, which is the world's top producer of cocaine. The surface of coca production has tripled over recent years, especially because the United States and Colombia have stopped the aerial fumigation of coca fields for health reasons. Also because Morocco, not far from France, historically has a drugs trafficking route that goes through Spain and relies on local communities of Moroccan and Arab descent.
Reports show that more people smoke cannabis here in France than anywhere else in Europe. Why is cannabis so popular here?
Above all among young people. Sociologically, we don't have an answer as to why this is. We have to take polls with a pinch of salt. We're essentially talking about drugs, something forbidden. So not everyone is completely open in their responses throughout all European countries. What's problematic is that we don't have a prevention campaign for this generation of young people, which could allow us to understand the reason for such popularity and to bring them reliable information about what they're taking.
There are some people, though, who point out the fact that more people smoke cannabis here in France than somewhere like the Netherlands, where cannabis is regulated. Maybe an argument to legalise cannabis here in France. What do you think about that idea?
We haven't seen a correlation between the drop in number of consumers in the Netherlands and the decriminalisation, so we can't make that link. But what we do know is that the Netherlands and Spain are trafficking hubs. So decriminalising a drug doesn't mean that we manage to better control trafficking. These are two separate battles for police.
Supporters, though, of legalising would say that people who want to get high will get high anyway, whether it's legal or not. So isn't it better, isn't it safer that it's done via the state where we can make sure that no dangerous substances are cut with it? Isn't that probably going to save lives?
What we see, particularly in Canada, is that consumers who wish to get high, as you say, continue to turn to the black market to get stronger products. The rate of THC, the psychoactive substance in cannabis, has shot up in recent years. And these are substances which really have a strong effect on young people's brains. We can't imagine that the government would put rates of 30%, as we sometimes see, on the market. So it would inevitably be less harmful products. So we know that there will always be a parallel market that certain consumers will turn to. Maybe not all. Maybe in one sense, it's what you're saying. While in the other, we'll keep feeding into a black market that continues to do an enormous amount of damage.
It's clear there is no magic solution to drug trafficking. Why do you think that is? What can be done?
One of the main difficulties we need to contend with today is international trade. We have to imagine that there are individual solutions for drug transportation, but there are also many that use economic freight transport, particularly arriving in ports. Le Havre is Europe's second port. There are mountains of containers. Some measure as much as 200 meters long. That's as high as the Arc de Triomphe. And they contain thousands of containers, which are each 6 meters long, 2 meters high. We can't control them all. Controlling them would mean a halt to the economy and to the thousands of companies waiting for deliveries in ovens, bananas, anything you can think of, which have sometimes passed through several transit countries. So we understand this isn't possible, and we concentrate on the information we have and on targeted controls.
I think we have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time.
Merci.
Here in Paris, there is an area so notorious for drug use, it's known as Crack Hill. It's in the very northeast of the city, and last year, police conducted a major raid there, trying to close activities down. But as we'll see in this next report, the problems haven't gone away.
They're often described as the undead. Drugged up sleepwalkers who haunt the streets, looking for their next fix.
You always need more, and it's never enough. I'm ashamed.
On the outskirts of Paris, in the capital's northeast, trafficking is a round-the-clock business, much to the despair of local residents.
When they evacuated the Ring Road area, they sent a bomb our way.
A simple walk around the block gives a clear sense of the situation.
All the people near that wall lying down, all of them are drug addicts.
The neighborhood has become so dirty.
I've never seen anything like it, ever.
The issue of crack cocaine isn't new to Paris, but until a year ago it was all but hidden away. Most of these addicts were gathered here, between the city's northern ring road and the motorway, an area that had been coined Crack Hill. The camp was dismantled in December 2019, and a high fence now keeps people out. Meanwhile, the trafficking continues, moving from one spot to another in the wake of each new police operation, but always sticking to two northern districts that include the Porte d'Aubervilliers area. This 57-year-old father of 7 has been smoking crack for years. He lost his family to the lures of this cheap cocaine derivative and returns here every night.
2-3 times, and that was it. I was hooked. Look at me now. Crack drains you. The hardest thing is when it's finished, when you run out. That's when people describe it as anguish.
His addiction first led him to Crack Hill and then to all the little encampments that sprung up. For him and his friend, the evacuation of the hill meant losing all their bearings.
We had doctors who'd come and see us, volunteers who'd show up and examine us and treat us if necessary.
And now?
Now everyone's scattered.
It's complicated. We can't hide anymore. We have to take our fix out in the open.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
According to this police chief, trafficking certainly hasn't diminished, but at least it hasn't grown further.
Isn't it a problem for local residents now they're scattered around?
You didn't think it was a problem to have 100 people on Crack Hill, living under a ring road, surrounded by rats? Does this mean the residents of Paris's northeast want us to re-establish Crack Hill? Yes, it's more visible now, that's true, but so are our police operations and arrests. And it makes it possible for our officers to make an arrest and catch suspects red-handed. Whereas on Crack Hill, you simply couldn't go in with just 3 officers, like we did here.
For police forces, the solution can't depend solely on them. A social and medical response is also needed, as are addiction centres far away from the city's trafficking areas. An implicit criticism of Paris Town Hall, which in turn rejects the police decision to dismantle Crack Hill.
Evacuating the hill at that stage basically destroyed the work we'd been doing there, and it's the same story all over again. It's very hard to re-establish contact with the people we'd been helping on the hill, and now they're scattered.
€9 million have been invested into an anti-crack plan, but its implementation has been delayed by the COVID crisis. A new addiction facility is set to open in the coming months, but once again in the city's north.
That's it for this week's episode. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you at the same time next week.
Running for the White House is your weekly look at what's going on in the U.S. presidential race, whether it's the picture of the week, the latest controversy, what campaigns are focusing on, or what to expect looking ahead. We bring you all the main stories in the lead up to the November 3rd election. So join us every Friday on France 24 for a new edition of Running for the White House.
Running for the White House on France 24 and France24.com.
We are journalists, and normally you have to listen to us, but you have things to tell us too. Maybe you've experienced a dramatic event, or you've got something important to say. You want to make a difference. That is why we created The Observers. Now, the first step is very easy. You get in touch with our team. Send us your images, tell us what you've seen. And then it's our job to get your voice out there, on our site, on social networks, on your mobiles and tablets, and on TV, of course. You can appear in our weekly show via webcam. Or perhaps we'll come see you in person, where you live, in your country, your town, and we'll work together on a report for our investigative show, The Observers Direct. So you get the idea. This show is your show, your way to get your voice out to the world.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.